Well, howdy folks, Buck Tanner here. Now, I got a question for you. What happens when you take the greatest crime movie ever made, give the actors real tactical training from British SAS commandos, and let them loose with some of the finest firearms ever manufactured? You get Michael Mann's heat. Brother, we're about to rank every single gun from that masterpiece from S-tier legends all the way down to D-tier disappointments. But before we dive into this gunfight, let me tell you something. I spent the last month rewatching this movie frame by frame, taking notes like I'm studying for the damn SATs. Cause Heat ain't just a movie, it's a firearms education course disguised as entertainment. We're talking about weapons that defined an era, carried by characters who knew how to use them, and shootouts that still make a grown man weep tears of joy. But here's the thing that'll blow your mind. Not every gun in this movie deserves the legendary status it got. Some of these firearms are absolute units that belong in the Hall of Fame, while others, well, let's just say they're riding on the movie's coattails. Starting off in B tier, we got Torito's glial arm during the bank shootout. This Israeli made rifle is basically what happens when you take an AK-47, send it to engineering school, and chamber it in 5.56 NATO. The glial combines the legendary reliability of the Kalashnikov system with the lighter, faster 5.56 round. Got the folding stock for compactness, but unlike some of the other rifles in the movie, it maintains a full-length barrel for maximum ballistic performance. What I love about the choice for Torito's character is that it shows his practical mindset. The glial is a working man's rifle. Reliable, effective, and built to last. The downside? Well, it's pretty heavy. At almost 10 pounds, it's nearly twice the weight of an M16 variant that his buddies are carrying. But that weight also helps with recoil management. The gun's reputation for reliability is well earned. When you're in the middle of a downtown LA shootout, you want something that goes bang every time you pull the trigger. The B-tier verdict here is cause it ain't the prettiest girl at the dance, but she'll never let you down when it counts. Dropping down to C tier, we got Winegrow's Star Megastar, and honestly, that might be generous. This Spanish-made pistol was marketed as a budget alternative to more established brands, and it shows. The Megastar is available in both 45 ACP and 10mm auto, which gives it a decent firepower on paper. It's also built like a tank, weighing in at a hefty 50 ounces unloaded. That's more than 3 pounds of steel and spite. But here's the thing, weight ain't always your friend in a handgun. The Megastar is clunky, awkward, and about as refined as a brick through a window. The trigger's heavy, the ergonomics are questionable, and the whole gun feels like it was designed by someone who'd heard about handguns but never actually held one. The fact that it's carried by Winegrow, the movie's psychotic loose cannon's probably intentional. It's a gun for somebody who values intimidation over precision and power over finesse. The C-tier verdict is because it'll make holes in things, but so will a hammer, and a hammer's probably more reliable. Next, let's move on up to A tier. We got Tom Sizemore's FNFAL from the opening armored car heist. Now this Belgian beauty is chambered in 7.62 NATO and has been called the right arm of the free world for good reason. The FAL is a proven battle rifle that's seen action on every continent except Antarctica. That's only because penguins don't have opposable thumbs. The gas system's adjustable, meaning you can tune it for different ammunition types, and that's the kind of attention to detail that separates the pros from the amateurs. But what keeps it in A tier instead of S? Well, it's a bit long for close quarters work. Torito's using the paratrooper model with a folding stock, which helps, but you're still dealing with a full power rifle cartridge in an urban environment. Like bringing a sledgehammer to hang a picture. You'll probably do it, but it might be overkill. That being said, the stopping power is undeniable. When Torito puts down the guard with the Mozambique drill, that's the 7.62 doing its job. 2 to the chest, 1 to the head. Lights out and game over. The A-tier verdict is because this is a legendary rifle that maybe is a bit much for a bank robbery, but you can't argue with the results. We're going back to the C tier, and this time we got the LAPD officers carrying the Beretta 92FS pistols. Now don't get me wrong, the 92FS is a competent service pistol. This is the same gun that served the US military's M9 for decades, and there's a reason it lasted so long. The 92FS holds 15 rounds of 9mm, has the legendary reliability and that distinctive open slide design that makes it instantly recognizable. The double-action, single-action trigger system gives you options, and the gun's reputation for durability is well-deserved. But why C tier? Context, brother. Context. These cops are going up against guys with rifles and body armor, and they're bringing 9mm pistols to the fight. It's like showing up to a NASCAR race with a stock Toyota Camry. I mean, it's transportation, but you're not winning any races. The LAPD adopted these in 1989, so having them in the movie is historically accurate, which shows Michael Mann's attention to detail. But accuracy can't make up for being outgunned. C-tier verdict here, because it's a solid pistol in the wrong fight. Now we're dropping all the way down to D-tier. We got the Assassin Steyr TMP. Now this one hurts because the TMP should be better than it is. On paper, it's a compact, lightweight submachine gun with a high rate of fire and decent capacity. In practice, it's a solution looking for a problem. The TMP fires 9mm at 900 rounds per minute, which sounds impressive till you realize most of those rounds are going to miss their target. That's because the gun's difficult to control in full auto, and the sights are minimal, and the whole package feels more like a prop than a serious weapon. The assassin in the movie demonstrates exactly why the TMP is problematic. He empties a magazine at Neil's car and doesn't hit anything important. It's all flash and no substance, like a sports car with no engine. D-tier verdict here, because it looks cool in the movies, but it's useless in real life. Now we're gonna go slightly up, back to C-tier. We got Neil's SIG P220 from the later scenes. Now, this one hurts a little because I genuinely love the specs of this gun. The pistol's chambered in 45 ACP and has a reputation for accuracy and reliability that's second to none. The P220 is a single stack pistol, meaning it's slimmer and easier to conceal than a double stack alternative. That 45 ACP round has serious stopping power, and the gun's trigger is smooth as silk. The build quality here, I'm talking, is absolutely top-notch. So why C-tier? Capacity. Plain and simple. We're talking about only 8 rounds of 45 ACP versus 15 rounds of 9mm from other options. In a gunfight, math matters, and 8 rounds just doesn't cut it when you're facing multiple opponents with high-capacity weapons. That said, Neil uses his gun to take out Winegrow at the end, so it clearly gets the job done when it counts. Just not the ideal choice for situations that these characters find themselves in. C-tier verdict. A gentleman's pistol in a working man's world. Moving back to B-tier, we got Torito's Benelli M3 Super 90. This Italian stallion earns its ranking through sheer versatility. The M3 is an absolute beast of a shotgun. It can operate in both pump action and semi-automatic modes. It's reliable as sunrise, and it hits like the hammer Thor. The problem is that it's a shotgun in a rifle fight. You're dealing with multiple threats at various distances. The shotgun's limited range and capacity become serious disadvantages. The M3 holds 6 rounds at 12 gauge, which sounds impressive until you realize the bad guys got 30-round magazines. That said, for close quarters work, there is nothing more devastating than a 12 gauge shotgun. When Torito uses it to stop the escaping truck driver, it's absolutely the right tool for the job. Just not versatile enough for the varied scenarios these characters face. B-tier verdict. Devastating in its element, but limited in application. Now kick it back up to A-tier, we got the HK91 that Chris uses during the drive-in assassination attempt. Now, this German engineering masterpiece is chambered in .308 Winchester, and it hits harder than reality after a 3-day weekend. The HK91's built like a tank and shoots like a dream. We're talking about a rifle that can put rounds on target at distances that would make the other guns cry. If Chris is providing overwatch from that rooftop, he's got the perfect tool for the job. What puts this in A-tier? Reliability, baby. This gun will function in conditions that make a Swiss watch give up and go home. The roller-delayed blowback system is smoother than a jazz saxophone, and the .308 round has enough energy to stop a charging rhino, let alone some wannabe assassin. The only downside is that it's heavy as hell and kicks like an angry mule. But when you need to reach out and touch someone at a distance, there is no substitute for .308 power. A-tier verdict. When you absolutely positively need to hit what you're aiming at from far away, except no substitutes. Dropping back down to C-tier, we got Neil's HK USP from the first half of the movie. Now, don't get me wrong, this USP is a fine pistol. It's reliable, accurate, and built like a German engineering project should be. The USP was cutting edge in 1995 with its polymer frame and modular design. It's available in multiple calibers and configurations, and the build quality is top-notch. The gun has a reputation for durability that is well deserved. So why C-tier? Kinda boring. That's not necessarily a bad thing in real life, but in a movie full of legendary firearms, competent only gets you so far. The USP's like that kid in school who got B's in every subject. Solid performance, but nothing that makes you sit up and take notice. Plus, Neil switches to the SIG P220 later in the movie, which kinda suggests even he thought there was room for improvement. The USP is a perfectly serviceable pistol, but Serviceable doesn't win gunfights against multiple opponents. C-tier verdict, because a good gun is a good gun, but it still suffers from being surrounded by greatness. Yeah. Continuing with C-tier, we got Al Pacino's FNFNC. This one's a real head-scratcher. The FNC was Belgium's attempt at making a budget M16, and it shows. It was actually withdrawn from NATO trials because it couldn't compete with established designs. See, the FNC's got a reputation for being finicky, with a tight magazine well that makes reloads difficult and a tendency to fire in brass into the next zip code. The trigger's mushy, there's no bolt hold open, and the whole gun feels like a compromise. So why would Detective Hannah, a seasoned LAPD veteran, be carrying this thing instead of a proper M16? Makes no sense from a practical standpoint. The LAPD would never issue these, which means it's either a personal weapon, questionable choice, or continuity error. C-tier verdict. It's a gun that exists, and that's about the nicest thing I can say about it. Also in C-tier, we got Detective Hannah's Colt Officer's model. This one's going to be controversial. Now, before you start typing angry comments, let me explain. The 1911 is a legendary design, and I've got nothing but respect for John Moses Browning's masterpiece. But the officer's model is like the 1911's problematic little brother. It takes everything that made the 1911 great and makes it worse. The shortened slide and barrel reduce reliability, the lighter slide mass causes cycling issues, and the reduced sight radius hurts accuracy. You're taking a gun that was designed to work with specific proportions and changing those proportions without addressing the engineering consequences. Plus, Hannah's carrying this as a duty weapon in 1995 when there are much better options available. C-tier verdict. Legendary design ruined by unnecessary modifications. Landing in D-tier, we got the armored car guard's Smith & Wesson Model 38 bodyguard. Now, the bodyguard is actually a decent little revolver in the right context. It's reliable, it's concealable, and it's chambered in .38 Special, which is a proven self-defense round. The problem here is context, people. This is a 5-shot revolver going up against a semi-automatic rifle wielded by professional criminals. Like bringing a knife to a gunfight, except the knife is smaller and the gunfight involves automatic weapons. The guard tries to draw from an ankle holster, which is already a disadvantage in terms of speed and accessibility, and by the time he gets the gun out, the fight's already over. Wasn't the gun's fault, just completely outclassed by the situation. So D-tier. A decent gun in the wrong fight at the wrong time. And finally, we reach the pinnacle S-tier. We got the absolute king of this movie, the Colt Model 733, better known as the Commando. Neil McCauley and Chris Tierlist both rocked these beauties during the bank heist, and brother, there's a reason these rifles are legendary. Now, this ain't just any AR-15 variant. This is the gun that laid the groundwork for what would become the M4 carbine. We're talking about an 11.5-inch barrel, collapsible stock, and that sweet 5.56 NATO chamber that hits like a freight train but handles like a sports car. So what makes it all the way up in S tier? First off, the ergonomics are chef's kiss perfect. You can see Val Kilmer executing that famous tactical reload behind cover, smooth as butter, faster than your ex moving on to somebody new. The gun's lightweight design means you can maneuver it in tight spaces, which is exactly what you need when you're robbing banks in downtown LA. But here's the real kicker. These rifles were ahead of their time. In 1995, most folks were still carrying full-size rifles that weighed more than a newborn calf. The Commando gave you that rifle-level performance in a package you could actually use without throwing out your back. The 5.56 round is perfect for urban environments. It's got enough punch to stop threats, but won't over-penetrate and take out half the neighborhood. Plus, with 30-round magazines, you got the firepower to handle whatever comes your way. These guns were so advanced, they influenced military procurement for the next 3 decades. Yeah, that M4 carbine our troops carry today is basically the evolution of what Neil and Chris were using in 1995. This right here, folks, is the gold standard for S tier. If you're planning a heist in downtown LA, which I'm not recommending, by the way, this is what you want in your hands. But there you have it, guys. Every major firearm in heat ranked from S-tier legends to D-tier disappointments. The Colt Commandos earned their place at the top through sheer competence and forward-thinking design. While guns like the TMP and the Guards 38 remind us that, well, not every weapon deserves a spotlight. What makes Heat special ain't just the guns themselves, but how they fit the characters in the story. Neil and Chris with their high-speed, low-drag Commandos, Torito with his working man's Galil and FAL, even Winegro with his crude but intimidating Megastar. Each weapon tells us something about the person carrying it. The real lesson here is that the best gun is the one that fits your needs, your skills, and your situation. Michael Mann understood this, which is why Heat remains the gold standard for realistic firearms portrayal in cinema. These weren't just props, they were character development tools. Now I know some of you are going to disagree with these rankings, and that is fine, that's what makes this community great. But maybe you think the HK91 deserved S tier. Or maybe I was too harsh on the P220. Drop your own tier list in the comments below, and tell me which guns you think I got wrong. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into firearms of Heat, you're going to love my next video where we break down the tactical gear and techniques used in this movie. These guys weren't just carrying great guns. They knew how to use them like professionals, and Michael Mann's attention to detail extended far beyond the weapons themselves. Click that video right there to see how real Special Forces training translated into the most authentic gunfight ever put on film. We'll cover it all, from Val Kilmer's legendary reload to the sound design that made every shot feel like it could punch through your speakers. Until next time, keep your powder dry, your groups tight, and remember, they don't make movies like Heat anymore. That's exactly how we need to appreciate the masterpiece we got. Y'all come back now, you hear?